Let's go ahead and get started here. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. Um, Juliana, are you ready to go ahead and kick off with me?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining today. And then again, thank you everyone for joining as well. We have a great webinar here today for you. And for the agenda, I'm joined by my lovely customer, Juliahna Stockham from Certified Group, our operations manager over there. And we're going to learn about the great program that she's set up within EdApp, learn about her use case, go through some interview questions, and we'll definitely save room at the end for a Q&A for you to ask her your questions and learn a bit more about her use case. So with that, Juliana, tell us a little bit about your role at the company and what Certified Group does.
Yeah, absolutely. So Certified Group is a microbiology testing company. We merged with another company a little while ago called Food Safety Net Services. So if you see FSNS, that's where that comes from. So Food Safety Net Services was absorbed by Certified Group, and we have over 30 labs nationwide. We have a few labs in Canada and a couple labs in Mexico. So we do a variety of food testing. We also do cosmetics, pharmaceuticals, GMP facilities, quite a bit now. We have quite a large scope now. But the portion that I'm mainly responsible for at this point in time is the microbiology testing, which includes testing for pathogens such as E. coli and Salmonella and Listeria, and keeping those foods safe before they get to consumers or grocery stores. So we're that piece in the middle that tests food before people like you buy it. So it's a little bit of what our company does.
Thank you. And congratulations again on the acquisition. That's super exciting. And how long have you been in the role of operations manager?
Sure. So I've been an operations manager for maybe 4 years now. My role just started with training being added to that list of responsibilities about a year ago now. So somebody else was doing training before me, and then I ended up taking over the training role for them. So I've been working with our training supervisors at each location and been working in EdApp for about a year now.
Excellent. And what did training look like at the company before EdApp?
So before EdApp, we just had a program that only allowed for document review and test taking. So we have, as you can imagine, thousands of documents in the company between standard operating procedures and work instructions and, a wide variety of just documents. It allowed for them to review the document and then take quiz questions based off of the document that they reviewed. So it was very static. It didn't allow us to update or alter those questions very often. And we have an annual training requirement according to our A2LA certificate. So, after taking those quizzes multiple times over the years, I could probably still do them to this day, and I haven't done them in probably 2 years. So it just didn't allow for a lot of variety. It was, I just got to get these done on the computer. It was kind of a chore. It didn't really feel very interactive or, honestly, as the information updates, it wouldn't even have updated information. So we just knew we needed something different.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And what do you think makes EdApp such a good fit for you in this type of laboratory environment?
Well, EdApp is great because it allows for 24/7 learning. I can update content whenever I want. I can change quiz questions. I can add information and take away information as necessary. As I mentioned earlier, we have thousands of documents, and those documents get updated constantly. So we have the need to be able to go in and instantly change things so that they have the most accurate information available for them. It also allows us to do on-the-spot training, which I think is super important, because we can make content so quickly. If there is an error and we need to basically correct the issue, we can create something super short. I love that EdApp has the ability to insert signatures so people can sign that they received and understood the information. I think that part is super great for the laboratory. Also, my favorite tab is the analytics tab.
Yes.
I absolutely love it. I'm in the analytics tab all the time. I love the fact that it's real time. Before, when we were using the previous program, everything was so manual. You had to pull information from each individual person. And then we also did basically kind of classroom training or side-by-side samples alongside the individual as well. And all of that had to be documented. So our previous program didn't allow those to be merged together where EdApp does, which is very
That's
nice.
Great. I'm so happy to hear that. And, in EdApp, user groups are a way of segmenting your users. So you can assign them different courses and filter by them in your analytics. And
Right.
user group collections are a level of hierarchy above that. You can sort of think of it as a folder of user groups. And I know in your account, Juliahna, you have hundreds of user groups.
Yes.
And collections. What has your
Yes.
experience been deploying EdApp to the labs, and how did you end up segmenting your employees?
Yeah, absolutely. So currently our program involves 24 different labs. So each lab has a collection user group, and that's great for pulling analytics because if I select my collection user group, it's going to pull every user group under there. I'm not sitting here clicking multiple user groups, which is amazing. But each user group under that collection is separated out by job titles. So our job titles are how we supplement that training. So a microbiologist versus a senior microbiologist, they're going to get the same level at the microbiologist level. And then the senior microbiologist is going to get additional training, whether that's more in-depth or on different methods or, just things of that nature. It's going to be more, more advanced type training. And we make this distinction across the board at all of our facilities. So each lab is going to have roughly the same type of user groups. And then we have a training supervisor at each location that is trained on how to add and remove people from those user groups so that they stay up to date.
Oh, that's great. Yes. So you're able to sort of share the load, those lab managers can help you invite, so it's not on you. That's great. Yeah. I'm glad.
Yeah, it's super helpful because, we want analytics, which is, the biggest portion that we ended up looking for a new program. We want them to be real time. Before it would take multiple days to have to pull analytics, and now, we could see it all at a click of a button, which is amazing.
That's great. And yeah, just so everyone knows, our analytics updates around every 30 minutes or less. So that's what Juliahna means by real time. Thank you for sharing that. And let's talk a little bit about the training content. What has your process been for bringing that training content into EdApp? Did those materials exist beforehand? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we did have a couple things such as like PowerPoints that really helped kind of get the content started in EdApp. But essentially that's my whole role is I take the information across multiple sources and put it into the EdApp training. So for example, we'll have a topic like Petri film or something. We'll have a PowerPoint on it. We'll have a work instruction on it. We'll have multiple SOPs on them. And so I take all of that information and combine it together in a way that a new employee would understand or hopefully understand, and then be able to take that information. All of my stuff gets reviewed by our corporate quality team. So it does go through like a subject matter expert first before it's released to the employee. But since I've been with the company for a long time, I kind of know where to pull all that information from. And they're all referenced in EdApp as well. So if a new employee needed to find that information, they could just look at that and pull it up relatively quickly.
Great. And I know you've built a lot of training yourself. We've also used some of our content production services here at EdApp.
Mhm.
How has that process been, having some content created for you as well using your assets?
It's definitely different. So when we had you guys make our content, it's kind of like you guys are putting the bones together and then I have to add the feathers. I have to add like just little information in there where it kind of helps fill it up and it helps kind of the technical piece because we are using it in such a technical way. It's been really great because honestly, the content takes a while to create. So I love the fact that we can just ask you guys to make something for us and then I can kind of come in and just fill in a little bit of the extra details or add, another level of information if I need to. And then we can get it out to the team relatively quickly, which is nice.
Great. Yeah, I'm so happy that helps speed along your process
Yeah.
because, like you said, that's the bulk of it. That's what'll take the most
Mhm.
time. So that's
Yeah.
really good news. And on this topic, you have some quite technical training.
Mhm.
I'm about to embarrass myself trying to read some of these course titles, but you mentioned Petri film analysis and interpretation,
Mhm.
you have quantitative procedures, lots of very technical training. How
Yes.
has the process, been transitioning this technical content into more of that micro learning format that EdApp has? How has that been for the employees?
It's been received really, really well. So we utilize a portion called practical assessments, and
Mhm.
we use the practical assessment in the form of an observation checklist. So our supervisor will get with the employee and pull up a topic. Let's just stick with Petri film. And they'll actually watch them go through the whole process of setting, cleaning, preparing a sample for Petri film, plating it, and then also on our Path Lab side, being able to read and interpret that information. Observation checklists are a big portion of our training in terms of our accreditation. And we do that because we not only want to make sure that they're getting the information that they have, we want to make sure that they can actually carry out the SOPs and that their technique doesn't drift and that they're really performing every sample the same way we want it performed. So we use these practical assessments as a way to observe the employee completing the task exactly the way that they were trained, however many years ago. That's been really great. We require management sign-offs on those as well and trainer sign-offs on those, which I think is super important because it acknowledges the training on both sides. We also really like the interactiveness of the modules, which is the main bulk of the training. So it's really a way for a new hire. We work alongside them. We do side-by-sides or we do hands-on training, and then they get the background information in the modules, and then they also get an observation, and it really helps the learner as well understand that they're doing it properly. Here's your observation checklist. You did a great job. You're good to go. You're signed off on this task. You can complete this task independently, and that's how we really designate that. Okay, you've been fully trained on this topic. You are good to go. You can perform this task independently moving forward. And I think that really helps the learner understand what they can and can't do in the facility by themselves because we have such a wide variety of training topics and we have such a large scope. I mean, some of our labs have 30, 40 methods on scope just on the micro side. And so each one of those has a different standard operating procedure, potentially different supplemental information that goes with that. And so we really use the practical assessments and kind of really all portions of EdApp to help supplement that training.
That's excellent. And thank you for bringing up practical assessments. And just so you know, everyone, that the practical assessments feature is actually one of our blended learning features. So Juliana uses them in an excellent way in the labs. And this blended learning feature allows, you can say, maybe a manager and their employee to sit down together, either in person or on Zoom, and they're able to assess the employee doing something. So, like Juliana said in her use case, watching them do a very technical lab procedure, they're able to assess them in EdApp, note down how they did, leave their signature. You can even take photos, videos, and when the assessor submits it, now the results appear for the learner in the app. So they can go back, they can reference how did they do, they can even redo it. So really great feature, and I'm so glad you're making great use of that blended learning approach.
Yeah, the practical assessments really allow us to take the portion that was manual previously with our other training program, and it allows us to put it in an electronic platform so that we can pull that information as quickly as possible. Because like I said before, it could take multiple days to pull that information, especially, if an employee was out sick. So now they're required to upload all of their training documents into EdApp so we can really see exactly how far along their training is, for new hires, for annual hires, for every portion of the facility, which is really, really great.
That's amazing. And we've talked a little bit about analytics throughout our
Mm-hmm.
chat so far. I know that was a huge determining factor for you in
Yes.
choosing EdApp. And
Mm-hmm.
I know it sounds like, the just-in-time approach to our analytics has been super helpful. How else have you been using the analytics? I know the manager dashboard is important to you. How are the
Mm-hmm.
managers using it? Are they following up with employees?
Yeah, absolutely. So each manager is assigned as a manager and a reviewer. I can't exactly remember the exact name title, but they can review their facilities analytics. And then I have the admin access, which allows me to review everybody's analytics. But our managers at any point in time can go into EdApp and see exactly how many courses are still due for each employee. They can see how many practical assessments they have left to do. Just for reference, we probably do between 5 and 8 practical assessments or observation checklists a month with each employee,
Wow.
depending on their title. So it's a really great way for them to ensure that they're staying on track with training. And they can also see that information outlined by user groups. So for example, let's say that we had, 3 or 4 observation checklists for the path lab department. They can go in and see exactly how far along their path department is as a whole. And then they can go a step further and see how each individual learner is doing. And what's great is that our high level managers and our quality team and our corporate team can see that from an admin portion as well. So if our corporate team was curious about how each facility is doing, they can pull up that analytics tab at any time. So like I said earlier, we would have to pull manual quizzes, we would have to pull training. We were using SharePoint to upload everything to SharePoint, and then you would have to go into each individual lab and then each individual person. So it just really has saved us so much time, honestly, already, just being able to see that due date as a manager and being able to say, hey, we have 15 people with courses due within the next 2 weeks. We need to schedule some time for them to sit down and complete those. I think it just being able to see it in real time has really helped a lot, especially with us keeping on track with training and ensuring that we're completing those observation checklists on time.
That's great. Thank you, Juliana. And I know we were actually just chatting yesterday because you had some great suggestions about the manager report. Thank you so much for that. But yeah, thinking towards the future, what features would you like to see on the platform down the line? Do you have any thoughts, suggestions?
Yeah. Well, like I said, the management dashboard is amazing. I think that if there was a way from the main page to see, how many people have completed versus how many have not, you can do it. You just have to do an extra step and an extra click to kind of see and go in and see exactly who hasn't completed them yet. But I think if we saw that on the main page, I think that'd be helpful because then they can kind of glance and say, okay, we have 5 observation checklists here, we have 2 here, we have 1 here, that's 8, that's not that bad. But when you see, 60%, 50%, 30%, sometimes that can be a little misleading, especially for some of our smaller facilities. So I think that would be super helpful. But another one that I think would also be really nice is all of our courses require a 90% or better to pass. So we do quiz questions all throughout our interactive training just to spot check some knowledge and things like that. But I would love to see what questions these learners are struggling with and what is causing them to fail courses and having to retake them. Because right now it's just, retake them, look through the information again, hopefully get the question right, move on. So if a employee fails a course and has to retake it, I would love to see what they're struggling with. And maybe not by an individualized basis, but maybe like a monthly report or something that says like, hey, 30 people took your EMP course today or your environmental monitoring program course today. And these are the 3 questions that were the most missed or something like that.
Yeah, great suggestions. Thank you so much. And we always, take in our customer feedback and share it with our product team. So they'll be very grateful for those excellent suggestions. So, last question for you, Juliana. What would you say you've learned about training and development throughout your career that you wish you might have known when you started?
Yeah. I know we talked about this a little bit. So the biggest one for me personally was, not everybody learns the same way that you learn. I did some research on this a little bit ago, but there's 4 major learning styles. And there's kinesthetic, which is I need to complete the task myself. I need to be hands-on. There's read-write learners who need to write down the information or read the information to really understand it. There's auditory learners who need to hear the information. And then there's visual learners. And these people learn by watching somebody else complete the task, or they benefit from the use of charts and graphs. So visual learning is the largest percentage of learners among adults, and kinesthetic is the lowest. But what's interesting is of those kinesthetic learners, about 90% of them go into science, which is our field. So previously, as I said before, our training program was about, completing side-by-side samples and then just reading information and taking quiz on it. So as I have made this training program and as I have developed it, I've really tried hard to keep those 4. Of course, there's way more, but keep those 4 main learning styles, in the portion of our training as I'm creating it. So we want to do side-by-side samples. We want them to hear the information. We've been doing way more videos. I've been, going crazy with the videos, which is super helpful. They still need to read the SOP. They still need to read those work instructions, which is going to help those write learners. And then, of course, seeing the visual with your side-by-side or with your buddy when you're working also allows you to touch on the kinesthetic side. So, that would be my biggest takeaway is really adjusting your training based off of the employee you're training right in front of you. Employees don't want to make mistakes. And every time we have a mistake come into the lab, I'm like, okay, well, think back on their training. Did we cover the 4 major learning styles with them? Did we cover the information in a way that they're going to understand? Because every single person is different. A huge cost in terms of training is turnover. And we need to make sure that from the start, we're covering these learning styles and that we're adjusting our training based off of everybody and not just, catering towards visual learners or saying, well, this is the best way that I learned it, so why can't other people learn it that way as well? I think being able to take your own personal testimony helps a lot. Sometimes I have silly rhymes or things that help me remember information. But just ensuring that you're catering towards the person that you're training. And this is a big thing that I'm covering with my training supervisors as well, is that, people don't want to make mistakes. They want to do their job. They want to be able to do it correctly. And it's kind of our job to make sure that we give them the information in a way that they're going to understand. The other biggest thing right now is that, like, the world is crazy, right? COVID is just insane. It's completely changed the way that we think about things. It's changed some of our processes and procedures. But the biggest impact that it's had for us is that a lot of our right out of college graduates didn't have lab. They couldn't have lab because of COVID. And so we're really honing down on the simple techniques and the little things that they might have learned during lab, and really putting more emphasis on the smaller training or the basic training so that they can be more successful in the future.
That's amazing. Yeah, and I totally agree. It's so important to meet the learner where they are, and I'm so happy that EdApp has helped you fill this huge gap that might have been missed during COVID with employees who can't be there in person to do labs. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, of course, of course.
Well, we would love to hear from the audience any questions you have for Juliahna. Bobby, have you heard of any good questions so far from the team here?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, we have one here from Melissa. And they say, have any turnover, retention, training, completion KPIs improved over the last year since you've used EdApp?
I think it might be a little too soon for us to really tell. I know that just from some surveys that we have gotten, they are really taking the information very well. Our training program kind of went from 0 to 100 in a year. So it's much, much different than what it used to be. A lot of our annual employees or senior employees who've been with the company, who have seen both sides, really prefer the new way. They think that it allows us to train every single person the same way across the board, no matter what location you're at. If this is your title, these are all of the things that your supervisor is going to cover with you, and there's going to be no drift because they have to complete each one of those boxes to move on to the next one. So we've done a really good job at separating out our training and really outlining every single item that these employees need to cover with these trainees so that nothing is missed. And it's really nice because we're putting a good emphasis on operations and efficiency, but we're also putting a lot of emphasis on quality and ensuring we're doing the right thing and we're doing it correctly and accurately.
Excellent. Well, I see another great question here. Was there any hesitation from your learners, Juliahna, when you were switching to EdApp? And if so, how did you overcome any of that hesitation to switching to a new platform?
I think the biggest hesitation was the amount of time that employees were going to need to spend on training. That was a big topic of discussion when we were switching the training program. Previously, it did not take very long. It put a lot of emphasis on the trainer being able to show the employee what they need to cover and really allowing each lab to kind of distribute the training in their own way. And because of that, it allowed for a lot of drift and it allowed for a lot of missing spots. So people who were microbiologists were not getting the same information as other microbiologists within the company. And that was one thing that we really hoped to change with the new training program, is if you're a microbiologist, this is the level of information you're going to know no matter where you're at. But there was a lot of hesitation when we first switched the program, just because we weren't spending a lot of time on training, and it really showed. I think our turnover really portrayed that. We did exit interviews that said, there were new employees coming in that were getting more training than I did. I got stuck on one platform the entire time I was with the company, and that was really frustrating for them. So I think that everybody knew we needed to change, but nobody really knew how we were going to change. And really making that distinction of job titles, and if this is your job title, this is everything you're going to need to know to be successful, really helped the trainer stay on track with what they needed to teach, and the learner understand how far they needed to go to be fully trained. Because before it was just each lab was kind of doing their own thing, and we really wanted to get away from that, which does cause us to spend more time on training, which is not great operationally, but we have seen good responses with it. We have allowed the team to take their time with it and to really get through it, because it's important, and they really need to understand what they're doing before they move on to the next role. The flip side to that, though, is no promotions or increases are happening until they finish the training. So it's kind of on both sides. The trainee needs to understand that they have all of this information to get through. The trainer needs to understand that they have to finish their training before they can move on, and the employee is going to get upset if they can't get promoted. So It's definitely been a balance, and it's I'm not going to lie, it's still a little bit of struggle to this day, but I think it's a big struggle because we have so many employees, so many locations, and each location is trying to stay on top of it.
Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you for running us through that. I hear that a lot with a lot of the other customers I work with, that one of the main reasons for choosing EdApp is it's so important to have the standardization of information across, sites, plants, retail stores, locations. And without that one source of truth, it's so hard to have that, standardization of processes and information. So yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Bobby, any more questions on your end from the audience here?
That's all we have.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for everyone who joined today, and we'll make sure to send this recording out to you after the call. And Juliahna, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experience. You've done an incredible job and put together such a robust training program. It's so nice to work with you, and we really appreciate you joining today.
Well, I love that you're so helpful. I love the fact that I can just kind of email you questions here and there and you respond back next day. I mean, honestly, you've been so helpful with the transition and being able to figure out, my brain of this is what I want to do. How do I do it? And you just kind of like helping me through that. I think your guys' customer service is absolutely amazing. You guys are super helpful, super patient with us. And honestly, like, you're just such a great resource to have on our side as well. So just thank you so much for that.
Thank you. That means so much to me, Juliahna. I really, really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, everyone, again, thank you so much for joining, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
All right. My pleasure. Bye, everyone.
Bye.